and socialism. Essentially, what I mean is that the two cannot coexist. Both of them will be at war until one comes to dominate the other. And so with respect to Africa, we know that capitalism's intent has always been to dominate and to control it because of its wealth, because of its human and natural wealth. It has come to control it and to dominate it and to resist and to put down any efforts to dislodge the control that they have. And so that becomes the focal point for our struggle. It is the linchpin in terms of the status and the future for liberation struggles throughout the world. Because if you understand it and think for just a moment, Africa has more wealth than most continents in the world, but yet it has the poorest people. It has the poorest people because all of that wealth is in the hands of foreign corporations and Western powers. If for some reason, and we know it inevitably will become true, but if at some time Africans take control of all of that, and they are using those resources and that wealth to benefit Africans and other struggling people around the world, then the balance of power fundamentally changes on this planet. Because what will emerge from that is a superstate, a superpower, the likes of which the world has never seen. All of these countries united into one, the United States of Africa, which will, by its very existence, give it more diplomatic influence than any other country in the world, which by its existence will give it more military might and potential than any country in the world, which, when united, will make sure that it has an economy which is unmatched by any other in this world. And by its very existence will make a huge difference in the lives of anyone who is in any way affiliated or associated with the African continent. And so the question frequently arises, well, you're out there talking about Africa, what about right here in Wilmington? What about in Philadelphia? What about in Washington, D.C.? Can you imagine the way in which the lives of Africans in Wilmington and Philadelphia and Washington will change if there's a United States of Africa? If you want to know, all you have to do is look at Zionist Israel and the experience that the people there have. That's an illegal settler, immoral settler colony. Let's be clear about that. It has no right to exist. It never did. But by its very existence, the so-called State of Israel, because it's strategically located in a very sensitive part of the world, as tiny as it is, those Zionists who will claim some type of connection to it, some type of allegiance to it, can walk into any place in the world, any place in the United States in particular, and say, I want you to jump, and people will say, how high do you want me to jump? Because they know that they're backed by this super state, by this little state, strategically located. If you've got the United States of Africa, which is the greatest superpower that anybody has ever seen, if any police officer rolls up on some brother and says, get out of the car, boy, and then they see it's an African, and they say, oh, well, if I beat this brother, then it might create an international incident. Have a nice day, sir. It changes the fundamental reality of our people immediately, just by its very existence. And we don't even need to worry about whether they like us, they don't like us. I know this Nigerian, he thinks he's better than me. No, you don't even need to worry about that. I don't care if he hates you. If there's the United States of Africa, your life changes. Everybody's life changes. And anybody who's struggling against capitalism anywhere in the world has a different reality and a different existence. If they're struggling in Venezuela and they need some money for whatever reason, and the United States of Africa is able to give it to them in order to sustain their struggle against imperialism, then look in Cuba, which is suffering in a terrible way, but notwithstanding the attacks that have been leveled against Cuba, has continued to provide for its people and provide for Africans in ways that no other country has. Definitely, if they come asking Africa for any type of assistance, it will come back in droves, in boatloads, in ways that we've never seen, and Cuba will emerge and become a country like we've never seen. It changes the fundamental balance of power in the world in ways which we could never imagine. And so this is something that we must take into account and which we must understand. The question always comes back, what are we going to do? We're sitting here in this little room with these few people, and we have to, if we're not conscious, we begin to think, well, we don't have any chance against imperialism. Well, let's start with the first fact. And the first fact is that if we do nothing, imperialism will fall. It will self-destruct. It has to. We know that from history. Every empire which has existed in this world has collapsed.
Yeah, right.
The only question is, how fast will this one collapse?